The more I look into Texas A&M's offensive line, the more concerns I have.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. And on today's show, we are going to talk a little bit about this offensive line. I talked with our Locked On SEC host, Nic Scourton, recorded with him last night. That'll be Friday's show. And, we talked about the offensive line, and I talked about how I think this can turn into a positive for this roster. But looking more at this offensive line, I have some concerns. Those concerns can, of course, be fixed or they can go away with, a few things, some player development, different things. But let's get straight into this. So, you got Trey Zunbeck, you got Mark Naboo back, you got Cam Dewberry, Bryce Foster, Trace Basantis, Demetrius Crownover, you got Fauthry, you got the transfers, Mars, Reed Adams, Derek Graham, Hinton, you got the kids coming in, the young guys coming in, the freshmen. Depth is not my concern right now. There's plenty of guys that, how many is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. You got 13. There's a couple more guys on the roster that I don't know how much of a role they're going to play, so I didn't put them here. But, you've got 15-ish offensive linemen who can go out there and play. You've got a 1 deep, a 2 deep, and a 3 deep. And you've got depth. I don't think depth is the concern. I think the concern for this Texas A&M offensive line is, are they going to get any better from last year to this year? And, you bring in Coach Adam Cushing, came with Coach Elko from Duke. And, Coach Cushing has a history of good offensive lines. He's a good football coach. And so, can he fix the issues from a year ago? That is what this is going to come down to. If you look at Texas A&M's offensive line and the players that you got there, from last year, Trey Zune didn't have a terrible year. I think everybody here, Cam Dewberry, Mark Naboo, Demetrius Crownover, everybody here, Trace Basantis, everybody did some good things. Ruben Fauthry, it was funny. It started, it started, what's the deal with Fauthry? And then, they just never saw the dude pretty much. But he is a massive, massive football player, Ruben Fauthry is. So does him getting back on the football field help this roster? I think so. But, I think, once again, Trey Zune, I think, had a fine season last year. Outside of Trey Zune, I think Layden Robinson, who has since moved on to the next level, I think he was fine. But fine isn't going to win football games. Good. Just, we want this offensive line to not just be, well, it's fine. It's fine. They're fine. They're a pretty good offensive line, No, we want this offensive line to be elite, an elite offensive line with the weapons that this offense possesses in Le'Veon Moss and Ja'Day Walker, Noah Thomas, Moose Muhammad, with the weapons, Donovan Green, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, with the weapons this offense possesses. If your offensive line can be, I'm trying to think, like, if 10 is elite, 0 is awful. I'd say last year they were a 4. If they can be a 7, I think Texas A&M can win 9 football games. Almost elite, maybe an 8. Almost elite. And if y'all remember back to last year, like I do, a lot of the issues, it's not. I don't think it's a strength thing, or or a overpowered thing. Now, yes, I'm sure each one of these offensive linemen get overpowered once or twice a year ago. I'm sure. But it's, to me, when Texas A&M was their offensive line was getting beat, the issue was stunts and twists and motions across the defensive line and things up front that I think confused them. I think it was a coaching issue. I don't think Adazio was a good offensive line coach. I just don't. I mean, I don't know how anyone, and if any of y'all everydayers here disagree, let me know. But I don't know how anyone could think that. I just don't. I think that with all of this talent, all of these, star, how many 4 or 5-star players you got on this offensive line, I don't know how this unit isn't better. I mean, at that point, it has to be coaching. And you could say that for a lot of position groups from the previous seasons with how much talent you had. But offensive line, I mean, these guys have the size. We talked about it last year. Texas A&M's offensive line last year was massive. And massive in a good way, not massive in they're a little bit, they've got the bad way. We're talking massive in a good way. So, and that'll be the case again this year. We'll run those numbers, when we kind of get a real feel for the starting five, which we kind of got one now, but, and see where this offensive line stands compared to some other offensive lines in the SEC when it comes to size. But, I feel like this offensive line can be good, but it's all going to come up to what Coach Adam Cushing is going to be able to do. And you hate putting it all on the coach, but I think this is development. I think this is figuring out, okay, we have to work on being able to adjust to these stunts and move around. And that is kind of what I'm getting at here. I think you have to be able to do that. If you can't do that, I don't know how this offensive line is going to get any better. So to me, now, sure, could Tommy Moffitt help get these guys in shape and get these guys bigger, stronger, faster? Sure, of course. But for the most part, is this going to be, I think it's between the ears stuff, offensive line play. That is the difficult part of it is you've got to know picking up blitzes. This is, I think a lot of people in, watching offensive line play, they think a lot of it is just a guy getting overpowered, a guy getting blown by, whatever it is. A lot of it usually is players losing who they are supposed to block. Happens a lot. And now we're talking about a lot about pass protection. Now, obviously, this offensive line needs to create holes. I thought that the running backs last year, I don't think they had a ton of holes, but I also don't think they had. I also think that they did have some. I think the run game wasn't as much of a concern for me as pass protection was a year ago. Some might disagree there, but so I guess to really kind of start to sum all this up, the concern for me with this offensive line is, can they be developed? I don't think it's a skill issue. I don't think it's a size issue. I don't think it's a it's a little bit of technique issue, and it's a little bit, okay, this offensive line needs to be a unit. They need to be a group, and they need to be able to point out, and that'll be Foster's job some, but you say, okay, blitz, pick up. You're yelling these things. You're yelling, who's the mic? You're yelling different things so that your other offensive linemen know who they're picking up, know what they're doing, know who they're blocking, who's blitzing. This is the important stuff. And I think that is coaching. I really do. I think that a lot of that comes down to coaching. I think it is extremely hard to know, okay, this guy's going to come off the edge and these two interior guys are going to do a split or something. And then you've got 3 dudes changing directions and you've got to figure out which guy's my guy. That's why folks go unblocked. That's why defensive linemen get lost a lot. It is hard to pick up on that. And I think that's the issue. Now, yes, Tommy Moffitt can help get these guys stronger, get these guys in great shape, but all in all, and help them stay healthy. But I do think this is going to come down to, hey, Coach Cushing, can you get these guys right? Can you get them in shape? Can you help them know what they're going to be doing on those stunts, on those different movements on the front from the defensive front? That's going to be the key. So I'm concerned about this offensive line. Without a doubt, I have concerns about this offensive line. But I do think that you have the players there to succeed. It is going to come down to the coaching staff developing all of this talent you have throughout the offensive line. So let me know y'all's thoughts on that in the comment. How concerned are you on a scale of 1 to 10 about the offensive line? And do you think this is a coaching fix? Are the players there? Let me know y'all's thoughts on that in the comments. We're going to talk a little bit about the 5 players I think will get the most snaps from the transfer portal. We'll have that conversation coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Better Together. Better Together is the first cooperative daily fantasy application. Better Together offers a familiar experience for existing DFS players with a social twist. You can play with a friend or teammate. It provides a sense of camaraderie and enhances the social experience of watching sports. Makes you realize that DFS is fun alone, but like a lot of other things, is better when you're doing it with friends. Shows that synergy from working together gives you better chances at winning than going at it alone. The team, that's what's going to get it done on Better Together. If your bracket's already busted, which it might not be yet, but it could be soon, and you're tired of the same old daily fantasy grind where you make a roster, cross your fingers and hope for the best, or losing the last leg of your pick'em entry, introducing Better Together, the first cooperative daily fantasy platform where teamwork triumphs talent and you play with your friends, not against them. Pick more or less on a real player stats. Strategize with your partner to boost your odds and climb the leaderboard together. So grab a friend and join the DFS movement. Download Better Together now from the App Store and sign up using promo code Locked On for a free $5 entry into any NCAA basketball contest. Remember the code Locked On because winning alone is fun, but it's better together. I also want to tell you about our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and a ton more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. So I want to get into the 5 transfer players, guys that have transferred into Texas A&M through this previous period. The 5 players who I think are going to play the most snaps. And I have them, and then I have 2 honorable mentions. So I'm going to write them in order because I wrote my names down, but didn't put them in order. So the way I have this in order, number 1, I think is going to be Nic Scourton. I think he's going to end up, being a starter. I think he's going to end up being a dominant force in this league. That's funny. In our conversation with Locked On SECO's Chris Gordy, you're going to hear a lot of excitement around Nic Scourton. You all that listen to Locked On Aggies, you everydayers, y'all know how much I like Nic Scourton and how good I think how good of a player I think he's going to be. You're going to find out how great I think he's going to be on that show because I really think he's going to be dominant. So Nic Scourton is number 1 guy for me. I think he's going to be out there a lot. I think he has a legit chance at double-digit sacks. And this is what I talked about on the show. His form, his ability to have multiple different pass rush moves. It is so impressive. And you have to have that. You have to have multiple pass rush moves. You can't be a one-dimensional guy. You can't rely on the push-pull or the bull rush or the spin move or the swim move. You got to have everything. You have to have every pass rush move in your toolbox. and Nic Scourton has that and some. So I think he's going to be a dominant force across on this Texas A&M front. So I'm really excited about that. I think he's going to rack up the sack numbers. And then the next guy I have here, and I think these two guys are interchangeable. I have them at 2 and 3 because I think they're going to end up starting, and that is Des Ricks and Will Lee. The two corners. Des Ricks, of course, the kid from Alabama, former 5-star player, super talented guy. Didn't get a ton of playing time last year at Alabama, but he was young. If he sticks around, I think he's out there this year. So I think Des Ricks has a lot of good football in front of him. I'm really excited about him. I think he's a great player. You kind of have to go back to the high school tape on him because you don't have a ton from Alabama. But I just his upside is through the roof. I think he's going to be a good corner, and I think he's a future NFL player. So Des Ricks is a guy who I think is going to end up winning a starting job, and I think that he is going to have a really good year for the Aggies, and hopefully get rid of the concerns we have about the secondary. Of course, that's a big concern right now for all Texas A&M fans is the secondary. We know what happened a year ago, but Coach Oko did an incredible job bringing in a ton of talent in the secondary. So I think that Des Ricks is going to fix those issues, and he's going to have he has a good season in front of him. And then I've also got Will Lee. I think Will Lee is going to give Tariq Chappelle a run for his money. And then you've got some other guys. You've got Hill from Florida. You've got Donovan Saunders. You've got so many corners this year. But I just think Will Lee is going to have a really good spring. I think he's going to have a really good summer, and I think he's going to end up winning this job. Watching the tape on Will Lee, there's some things that stand out. There's some things to be fixed. But I think he is a guy who can start for this football team and can be a really good player. He got burned some last year. He made some bad decisions, tried to jump some things that led to some big plays against Kansas State a year ago. But I do think that Will Lee is a player who can start and who can have a really good year for the Aggies. So those are my two corners I think are going to play the most snaps because I think you're going to see them out there a ton. Then I've pivoted, ladies and gentlemen. I have pivoted after yesterday's conversation. I'm starting to get more and more sold on Scooby Williams. I like Alex Howard. I do a lot, and I'll go ahead and spoil something for you. Alex Howard's going to be our honorable mention because I think one of these two guys is going to be out there playing linebacker next year for Texas A&M, but I'm more sold on Scooby Williams. I think I watched a little bit more on him, watched a little bit more tape, and I think the talent is there. I think he is a player who could kind of, he was a highly ranked guy out of high school, a lot of talent there, a lot of raw natural talent. I think that this coaching staff can get it out of him, and I think he can turn around his career and have a really good season. I'm starting to lean to Scooby Williams being the starter, and I know, but I'm starting to lean there. And then my fifth guy is the safety, DeRicky Wright. Same thing here. You've got Ratcliffe, and you've got Jones. You've got these transfers at safety, and I'm watching more and more tape on DeRicky Wright, and I like the way this dude plays the game. He's huge. He can play a lot of positions. He can do a lot of things, and he just played a lot of good football at Vandy, and I think he can be a good player for Texas A&M. I'm starting to get sold that he might start. When we get rocking and rolling a little spring football and stuff, I think we might get a better understanding of what this roster looks like, start hearing from coaches and stuff like that, who's standing out. But I'm excited about DeRicky Wright. I'm starting to get sold on him. He played good football at Vandy, and I think he has good football ahead of him at Texas A&M. I've got a couple honorable mentions of Alex Howard, of course, the other linebacker. I think it's going to be one of those two. Today I'm leaning Scooby Williams. Tomorrow I might be back leaning Alex Howard. So, and then the other one is Jabri Barber, the receiver, 999 yards a season ago. And I think that he's going to have a role for this Texas A&M football team. I think he's going to be out there. I think he's going to play some relevant snaps. But are those relevant snaps enough to have him top 5 on this list? I don't know about that. So I think that he is going to be a good football player. I think he's going to do a lot well. I think he's going to have a big role for this receiver room, but I don't know if it's going to be top 5 snaps in the portal well. So I've got some mailbag questions now. We've got that show coming out on Friday, and then tomorrow we've got baseball and basketball to talk about. So I've got some mailbag questions today, some interesting ones, and I think that some of these talk about how deep can the Aggies go on the court in the tournament, and then can Texas A&M take down Mississippi State on the baseball field this weekend? We'll have that conversation coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Nissan. This week's March Madness Bracket Highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one team that stands out, a team that's pushed it further than the rest, just like any of the new 2024 Nissan SUVs. These guys were able to take it to the next level. The Auburn Tigers can only be described as a pathfinder. They've been thrilling to watch and have really created a lane for themselves after claiming the top spot in the SEC as they knocked off the Florida Gators in the SEC Tournament Championship. They're set to make a run in the NCAA Tournament. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com today. So, first question here is, can the baseball team win this series against Mississippi State? To me, this is a clear yes. This series is at home, and Mississippi State is coming off a series win against LSU, which was a bit surprising. I was not expecting that, but I do think that Texas A&M wins this series. It'd be awesome if you could find a way to sweep, but listen, you're not going to win every series. You're not. Playing at Florida is a tough place to play. I'm not frustrated by that series loss. It stinks because it would have been fun to win it, but win this series against Mississippi State, get yourself going, rocking and rolling. This is the SEC. I always say every baseball team in the SEC, top to bottom, every single team in the SEC, in my opinion, would be a top team in any other conference. I mean, and that's why I always say every SEC team that is able to get out of the, get to the postseason can make a run, because this conference is just so much better than every other conference in baseball. So, I think, Mississippi State is a good baseball team that could make a run if they get out, So, I think the Aggies take this series, but I do think Mississippi State has shown up a little more than I kind of expected them to. And then basketball, what do I think about the Nebraska game? I think that they're going to beat Nebraska. I really do. Nebraska, I'm not sold. I think Texas A&M is playing good ball. I'm not to say Nebraska isn't, but I think the Aggies are in a really good spot right now. I think Wade Taylor's feeling it. Manny Oseki's feeling it. Boots Rafford's playing good ball. Anderson Garcia's doing good things. Solomon Washington's doing good things. I just think Texas A&M, the basketball team, is doing some good things right now. And I'll tell you this. I think that this basketball team can beat Houston if they take care of business against Nebraska. So, Houston, their defensive pressure causes people issues. It does. It causes people issues. And I think that if you haven't seen that, it's concerning. It's hard. It's hard to okay, we can watch as much tape as we want. Who has seen it? Texas A&M, because they've played Houston. And I think that will benefit them. They lost that game. It was 4 points. I believe it was 66-70. And Texas A&M, has seen that defensive pressure. That is huge. You know what to expect. I think Texas A&M can beat Houston. I do. And I just think that if it was another, 8 seed or another 9 seed, I don't know how confident I would feel in their ability to take down Houston. I just think having seen that pressure makes such a difference, and Texas A&M has, and I think that is a reason why they can make a run. So then the next question is, how deep can they go in the tournament? I mean, I'll tell you what, Texas A&M has become a hot name in people's brackets to beat Houston to kind of make a run. I've seen Texas A&M in some Elite Eights. I've seen them in some Sweet 16s. And I just think something about Buzz Williams as a coach and the way his team plays for him and the way that this team is so tight and they're brothers and they love and care about one another. I just think there's a world where this team goes on a run. I really do. I think this team could go on a run. And I'm really excited to see what they do. I mean, what is this team going to be able to do? So I think there's a world where they are able to take down Houston and take down Nebraska and get out of the first weekend. I think this is a talented basketball team that is feeling good right now, playing good basketball right now. So I'm excited about it, ladies and gentlemen. I really am excited to see how Texas A&M does. Do they make a run? We'll talk more about basketball tomorrow. We'll get more in depth. We'll break down Nebraska. We will get into all of that on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Aggies, but I just want to talk a little bit about it. I'm excited about it. I think this team can make a run. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you all so much for being here every single day. I really, really do appreciate it. I hope everybody has a great rest of their day today, and we will see you tomorrow.